Good afternoon, Prime Minister. My committee has just completed an inquiry on children's social care, and as part of that inquiry we heard really devastating evidence from care-experienced young people who experience a cliff edge in support at the age of 18. So, for example, a young person told us how she had to give up her A-levels because she had to work in order to pay rent to keep a roof over her head. I hope you would agree that that is a choice that no young person should have to make. And as a consequence of that evidence, my committee's recommended that young care-experienced people need more support at the age of 18, both with accommodation and with their living costs, to stop them being trapped in poverty for a lifetime. Is that a recommendation that you agree with, and how would you progress the urgently needed additional support for young people leaving the care system?
Well, firstly, I absolutely agree with the identification of the problem that you and your committee have put forward. Lots of children coming out of care essentially go off a cliff edge from having support when they're in care to almost none, and we've got to, in my view, change that so there's support and it's graduated as they come out of care. I haven't looked particularly at the recommendations, but I will make sure that they are being looked at and obviously give you our full response to them.
Thank you. So we welcome very much the government's commitment to youth guarantee to support young people into education, employment or training. But we are really concerned about some of the additional barriers that young care experienced people face, often as a consequence of trauma that they've suffered earlier in their lives. And the evidence that we've seen would point to the government's decision to withdraw universal credit from under 22-year-olds as having particularly harsh impacts on increasing poverty amongst care experienced young people. Our report recommends that group of young people, actually numerically a very small group of people, are removed from the exemption, from the decision to withdraw universal credit so that they can still access that support when they need it. Is that something that you will be prepared to take forward?
Well, I'll certainly have a look at the recommendation that your committee has made. I do think the youth guarantee is a hugely important part of what we're trying to do, but we'll certainly look at your recommendation.
One of the issues is that the mental health support often isn't there for those young people who've experienced trauma earlier in their lives, and it is very difficult for them, if they're living with trauma, to be able to take advantage of opportunities that might otherwise be available to them. And that's why we're looking particularly at that safety net for care experienced young people, because this is about avoiding them being trapped in poverty for the rest of their lives. Is this something you'd be prepared to pick up?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, we'll look at the recommendation your committee has made.
Okay. And then the final thing from me, just drawing again on that report, is that the evidence is that, really, if the government is serious about homelessness, if the government is serious about tackling the problems that we have in the criminal justice system, the government has to be serious about providing better support for young people in the care system, because they are so vastly overrepresented in both of those populations. So a quarter of the prison population has care experience. That would indicate that they're not in prison for any reason other than their lives have gone really badly wrong because they've been let down previously and when they were children. So this is a problem that we believe as a committee is of strategic importance to the government. Yet support across the country for care experienced young people is completely inconsistent. So our committee recommends that there is a national offer for care experienced young people. Will you commit to that, Prime Minister?
Well, firstly, on your general analysis, I agree. I mean, for many years we've seen an overrepresentation of those that have been in care, in poverty and in prison in the criminal justice system. We absolutely need a better approach to that. Whether a completely national approach is right or wrong, I don't know. I'll certainly have a look again at what your committee has said about this and make the relevant inquiries. But we do have to improve the chances and opportunities for those who've been in care and come out of care. And it starts obviously with what has been a cliff edge for many of them, but then continues with quite deep-rooted problems very often for the rest of their lives.
On current policy, they will still face that cliff edge and they will still fall through gaps in support because there is not a national safety net for them. So I hope that is something that you'll look at in detail and come back to this committee in due course with progress.
Okay.
Thank you.